Hello, how you all doing? Sarah here. Waiting for the snow, waiting for pancake storm or storm galette, or is that galette is a pancake? Anyway, yeah, waiting for the snow to come in. I thought I'd talk to you today about Mother, Maiden and Crone stroke Elder energy and the missing link. I think it's quite interesting that, traditionally there have been three elements to womanhood, if you like. So the maiden, the young girl who's, I guess, from puberty through till whenever she has her first baby, so say mid-20s, and then the mother from that time through until menopause, so early 50s, whenever. And then the rest being this crone energy. And I'm in the mind that sort of crone elder energy really doesn't kick in until right at the end of life. So I'd say, in these days, in your 80s. So there's this big gap, the missing link in between that really doesn't fit, I don't think, or at least it feels as if there's something missing. So I kind of like to call it the wise woman time. So we are at the point where we've done the motherhood bit, we've raised our children, and they have more than likely flown the nest. We're not of childbearing age anymore, and we're not at end of life. We've got this gap of, maybe 30 years in there. And it's a time where when suddenly women have found that they don't have that responsibility of bringing up children anymore, or at least, generally children will be of an age where they don't need nurturing quite as much as they do when they're tiny. Husbands are busy doing what husbands do, or boyfriends, or whatever, partners. And women are left with this kind of really empty space. And for a lot of people, this is where it can go a little bit awry, really. They have put aside all their life, they've put aside their wants, their needs, their passions, their path in life, if you like, because they've always been the caregivers, always there for somebody else, not often there for themselves, unless they've been very lucky and they've been able to follow their passion all the way through their life, and they've managed to balance that family and work, not work balance, but their passion balance. So yeah, it comes with a kind of a, you suddenly get this sense of freedom, but you don't know what to do with it. And it's a time when quite a lot of women get divorced, or they leave their partners, husbands, what have you, and go in search of themselves, go in search of what it is that they really want out of their life. And it's quite a difficult period, because we end up going down some really deep, dark rabbit holes about who we are, why we behave in the way we behave. And men kind of don't get it, although men have their own kind of midlife crisis, if you like, which is more to do with sexuality than anything else. But women tend to leave not because they're looking for another man, but because they're looking for themselves. So, sorry, this huge tractor just gone past the window. So we you end up going down these rabbit holes and not really knowing where to take your life, what kind of direction it needs to go in. And for me, when I got to Gozo, I was very lucky to meet very early on somebody who was able to kind of direct me in down a path that I had no previous inkling to go down at all, and that's of shamanism. And I started off with drum work and soul retrieval, and before long I had opened up a whole can of worms. And that first year or so was quite painful, in so much as that it opened up some really old wounds and exposed things that had been hidden for a long time. So I think, you know, when we're in the role of maiden or mother, women tend to, I'm not saying everybody, but tend to be people pleasers. They tend to say what they think other people want to hear, or they tend to just agree to keep the peace, or give too much affection. I say too much, not too much. Overly give their affection away in order to be loved. And when they come to realize that this is all based on quite often childhood wounding, you know, where you have to fend for yourself, that you don't have people around that you can share your worries, it results in self-isolation and just removing yourself from people, and that tends to carry on into adult life. So what looks like a cold, unresponsive woman is actually more to do with the fact that she's just dealing with things on her own, because that's how she knows how to do it. So this time, this liminal time between motherhood and elderhood, if you like, can be really tricky to navigate. So where does shamanic healing come into this, and how can it help? Well, as I said, you know, I kind of went headfirst down the rabbit hole. No holds barred, you know, straight in there, and it opened up an awful lot of wounds for me. But you don't have to do that. You can start off gently. You can find yourself, you know, somebody who practices shamanic healing, and just start with sacred drum medicine, which is a very gentle lulling into the space, allowing you to move along at your own pace. It does sort of crack open a little bit, you know, that sort of hardened edges, but it's not too overwhelming in the first instance. And then you can move into something like soul retrieval, which is, I think, should be on the curriculum for everybody to do in their life, because there's so many people out there that have simply no idea, that lost parts of themselves that it's quite a lot. It's a whole video on its own, soul retrieval. But basically, through wounding as a small child, or even in past lives, the things that we're carrying on from our ancestors cause us to behave in certain ways. And once your shamanic healer has journeyed to find that lost soul part, if you like, it's an essence. It's not like a piece of your soul. It's the essence of someone that has left your body for safety. So that needs to be brought back in. And once that comes back in, you know, a whole load of things change in your life. And it's not just one session. You know, you might have to do it multiple times. I mean, I think I've done about 10 soul retrievals. And I'm still not done. But, you know, the sort of major ones have been healed, and it's truly eye-opening when that happens. And then we'd move on to, say, power animal retrieval, which brings in your power animal that you perhaps didn't even know you had. And that's that's very empowering, because we can see our lives through the eyes of our power animal, and that's very strengthening. We would also do soul essence removal. So that would entail cutting cords of perhaps some wounding that occurred in the past, or whether it's with a family member, or even a death of a loved one, a breakup, abuse in some way, whether it's physical or mental abuse. So by cutting cords that are holding on to that unwanted energy, we can form new cords and move on with a brighter and less heavy aura energy field. We can also do extraction or intrusion removal, which is kind of almost the end stage of the healing journey. Well, not the end stage of the journey, but it's further down the line than sort of some of the gentler initial ones, and that's about removing curses or negative energies that have come into your body at some point and are causing sort of physical illness, mental illness, that kind of thing. And then alongside of all of this is that we can do creative medicine, which is really crafting, using ancient ways of crafting things like birthing drums, making medicine shields, which is kind of like a physical representation of spiritual protection. We can make rattles, we can do intuitive painting, which brings out some inner guidance. We can make medicine dolls, which are a very beautiful way to gather in a circle with other women, actually, to intuitively make some dolls that are bringing in messages from spirit or your ancestors, which is a really nice one to do too. And there's a myriad of creative medicines that we can do. We can work on the teachings of the medicine wheel, which is a template of how our lives work, with in the setting of the natural world, particularly, although it incorporates the spirit world and the physical body and that kind of thing as well. So that's kind of a lifelong teaching, but you can start to begin to see how doing a daily practice, we can begin to learn about how we fit in with the whole ecosystem of the planet. It's very much about being in nature and working with the nature spirits. And once we realize that we are intricately connected to everything on this planet, it's not just us human, Sarah going off to work in the morning, interacting with some people at work, coming home, eating your supper and going to bed. That's not what it's about at all. We're connected to the weather, we're connected to the wind and the fire, we're connected to the earth in a very powerful way, So the medicine wheel is a great teaching, and all of these shamanic healing practices help us find who we are, help us realign who we are, the person or the whole, the spirit and the human, what we've forgotten. It reminds us that we come from a lineage of spiritual people, that we have this connection to everybody. We have heart connections to everybody. Everybody you encounter is connected to you in some way or other. And we carry their energy. even people that we don't know anymore. You have to brush, if you brush past somebody in the supermarket, you're connecting energetically with those people. So the more that we understand about how it all works, the better we can navigate our own, what seem like small lives, although the problems seem huge. Once we realize we're connected to everything, it really does help. And so I kind of feel, for me personally, I went through this when I was out in Gozo, and it was just a beautiful experience of, I had no, of course, I keep in touch with my children, of course I do, and actually my daughter came to live out there, but I didn't feel any responsibility for looking after her or her brother. I was completely free of any social, what's the words? Social ties or whatever you like. I mean, I felt as if I could reinvent myself out there because I was away from people I knew. And people, friends that I left behind kept saying to me, "Oh, you've changed, you're not the same." And that was because I was shedding all these personas that I had previously embodied. And people don't like it when you do that, because it kind of makes them feel as if they're missing out on something, or not missing out on something, that they're some way energetically they feel disconnected, is what I mean. And now, I came back and I had the responsibility of looking after Mum. So I had to go back into caregiver mode. But now I'm free of that again. And so I am going to embrace this new chapter of my life, with arms outstretched. And it means that I can really get back into my practices, my teachings, my everything, and just feel into who I really am. And we'll see who hangs around to watch me morph and change yet again. But I would encourage, even if doing the deep work you're not quite ready for, I would encourage you to start just exploring. If you're in this wise woman period of your life, to just start exploring who you are. And we have to be warrior spirits too, because it's not easy. Anyway, have a good day. Hope you don't get too snowed under if you're in the UK. Looking forward to it, actually. I like a bit of snow. But take care, and please subscribe and like if you can, and I'll catch you all again soon. Ciao for now.